We've been taking, of course, a very close look at the humanitarian toll of the war in Israel against Hamas. At some point, though, we have to start talking about the economic toll as well, and more importantly, how you, I guess, get the economy back up to where it was prior to the incursion by Hamas.
As you say, humanitarian really takes precedence, but there is a substantial economic aspect to it as well. And so we check in from time to time with a man named Jon Medved. He's OurCrowd founder and CEO. He's the leading venture capitalist in Israel, really part of the startup nation. So we talked to him and we asked him about what is the effect. Now we're 7 weeks into this war. What's the effect in Israel?
There's a pattern which repeats itself every time we go to war. And that is in the first couple of days, markets go down, the shekel goes down, investors are spooked. And that's all completely natural. But then as the war starts to develop, people start to relax. They begin to realize that the world is not coming to an end, and everything starts going back to normal, more or less. And in this case, the shekel has, not only come back to where it was when the war broke out, but it's actually 5% stronger. So that's after some intervention by the central bank here. But the stock market has come back largely. And more importantly, investment continues to flow. And so dollars, especially into the critical tech sector, are continuing to flow well. And in particular, there's almost like I would call it a solidarity effect of many people who are stepping up and investing, which I think is a great development.
So turning to the tech sector, what effect have we had so far from this war in the tech sector? You've had a lot of people called up in the reserves. That means you're losing some of your employees. You said the investment appetite remains, but to some extent, is the tech sector a little bit on hold until this all gets resolved?
Well, what's amazing is that there's a slogan now that Israel Tech delivers no matter what. Actually, there's a website to that effect. Because the resilience is really being seen in the tech companies, and some of it's almost supernatural, because between 10 and 20% of our workforce is now called up. At my company, I have 200 people working at OurCrowd specifically, and we have 35 either in service or spouses whose husbands or wives are in service. So this is a significant impact, except that we're used to it. These people go off to serve on a regular basis throughout the year, and we're built in with redundancy and the ability to compensate. And people just are multitasking, working hard, pure grit. And what we're seeing is that the companies are simply not slowing down in terms of the deliveries and sales, and customers are understanding what's going on here. I think the biggest effect is I spend a lot of time explaining to both investors and partners around the world politics, when I'd much rather be talking about business. But we're doing the best we can.
So you're doing an extraordinary job, it sounds like, keeping things going. What about new investment, whether it's new rounds in existing companies or new startup companies? Do they have to put their hopes and dreams on hold a little bit until we get past this?
So what's interesting is that there's clearly an impact on the new investment round. Some investors are saying, hey, look, I really want to make this investment, but can we just hold off for another couple of weeks or maybe a month until the war is over? It's not going to look good at my investment committee. And there actually now are about a half a dozen initiatives, including one here at OurCrowd, to build specialized funds which are actually being proactive and are actually today leading investments. We're calling ours the Israel Resilience Fund, where we're raising $15 million, which is not a big amount for us. We manage $2.3 billion at the moment, but we want to put that money to work immediately, and we're doing it with no fees and no carry, which is sort of extraordinary in the venture capital world. But there are a bunch of people doing this, which is actually then acting as a catalytic factor, getting these rounds done, making sure that the startups have an extended runway and aren't seeing any kind of deleterious effect as a result of people wanting to hesitate.
John, what about the longer term? We talked before this all happened, the war happened, about the prospects of expanding out the Abraham Accords, and particularly involving Saudi Arabia, normalizing relations. You actually had been going to Saudi Arabia talking about that. That is on hold for the moment, it appears. But what are your thoughts about what happens after the war is over at some point? Can that be put back on track?
I'm speaking to you now from Abu Dhabi, and I'm here at the Abu Dhabi Finance Week, and Fortune is having a global summit here. It's remarkable how welcome I am and other Israelis who are here, and how committed the Emirati government is to the long-term strategic goal of normalization. Now, the Saudis are a little, haven't yet caught up with the Emiratis in this process, and they were getting very close. And that's really one of the reasons why I think Hamas chose that moment to attack, to try to prevent it. But I have absolutely no doubt that once the war is over, this will resume. I think the Crown Prince, MBS, has said so directly, that this can resume as soon as the war is over. Now, obviously, this is assuming that the war ends in, something like not an unreasonable time frame, and that, we get it behind us, and that we get back on with the very, very important long-term prospects of reconciliation and normalization. I mean, when you look at the long-term, not in the geopolitical context, in terms of the technology and where Israel tech is going to go, there is no doubt in my mind that Israel's strength in artificial intelligence, in semiconductors, in quantum computing, in advanced healthcare, in mobility, in ag tech and sustainability, all of these areas are crying for innovation and breakthroughs, which are coming from a host of Israeli companies. So when I take sort of a venture capital horizon look, which is not next quarter or next year, it's 10 years out, I am certain that not only will we be back on that normalization and reconciliation track, but Israeli tech will be much, much stronger in helping the world solve some key problems.